Hello and welcome to the Road to the Garden podcast. I am Matt St. Jean, joined by Tommy Godin as always. How you doing over there, Tommy?
Always a pleasure to be with you, Matt.
And Chris coming on for I guess this is kind of our final show of the regular season or our first show of the postseason. I don't know how you want to call it, but Chris, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to plug myself real quick at the top, like a self-serving scamp. A lot of writing from Chris this week, so go to Road to the Garden. Make it your homepage for your desktop. There will be a lot of stuff flooding the airwaves this week, so be there, read my stuff. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to have a ton of content on there. I know Chris is going to be doing, I think, some daily stuff for us. Michael DeRosa has a couple pieces coming up. I think I'm not entirely sure what the plan is, but we might have a piece coming up on the UConn-Providence rivalry as well. And Tommy and I are going to be doing some form of a live blog from the tournament too. So with all that together, plus the audio content and the Twitter content you're going to be getting there, now's the perfect time to be dialed in to Road to the Garden. And you know what else you guys should be dialed into? That's right, it's SeatGeek. We've teamed up with them this season to get the best deals for tickets to your favorite teams. That includes the Big East Tournament. Still looking for Big East Tournament tickets? Go ahead, use this SeatGeek code. They take the confusion out of buying tickets, and they're here to give you some great deals. Get in on the fun and head over to SeatGeek and download their app and use code NCAA Hoops Digest for $20 off your first purchase. If you use that for the Wednesday tickets, I think you might be getting $8 back. I'm not sure how that works with the current ticket prices. Yeah, definitely go use that code. Get yourself down to the Garden. Just do it. You know you want to go. This podcast is presented by House Enterprise and in partnership with House of College Hoops. Head over to our site, house-enterprise.com, for more info. That's where you're going to find all of our blog posts for this week. Guys, I think we got to start with the final 5-game slate of the regular season on Saturday. And the Big East was not going to let us go into the postseason quietly. I think we got kind of a big story coming out of Saturday in the very first game of the day. That's Providence's worst home loss under Ed Cooley. 24-point home loss on senior day on national television to a Seton Hall team that did not have Kadary Richmond or Trey Jackson. Shocking would be an understatement here, I think. Tommy, what were your thoughts watching this?
I mean, nobody told Seton Hall that they're not good. Nobody told Seton Hall that they're done. I mean, it shows. I mean, Seton Hall shot a season best 62.5% from the field in that game on 30 of 48 shooting, 55% from beyond the arc. I mean, their offense is clicking. Testament to Shaheen Holloway and that Pirates team. Because man, I mean, they're dangerous coming into the dance. They're coming in here wanting to make some noise.
Yeah, I think this is a Providence team that just kind of checked the starting lineup, saw no Kadary Richmond, and they're like, hey, this one's easy. This one's over. First half, they got outscored by 19, and then they just had a hard time clawing back in the second half. But I think Providence is fine. Let's ease up on the Providence stinks narrative that's going around, or like Providence is a bubble team. Stop it, first off. But yeah, good for Seton Hall.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard to tell here whether this tells us more about Seton Hall or Providence, because the game is so incredibly out of character for both of these teams that it's just like I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if this is a sign of things to come or just a basketball game that happened and really has no bearing on what goes on in the future. I don't know if you guys saw some of the post-game quotes from Ed Cooley in this one. I'll just read off a couple of them for you because they're eye-opening, I think. Quote, I've got to look myself in the mirror and ask if I'm playing the right guys. We haven't guarded anybody in 2 weeks. Our defense is soft, not connected, nonverbal. Seton Hall played an arrogant team today. That's who they played. They played a complacent, arrogant team today. Are we frauds? Who knows? Some of the things that he happened to say, and an assistant coach, Brian Blaney, on the local radio station there after the game said something about them basically just showing up to the arena not wanting to win. This sounds like what Shaheen Holloway was saying about his group back in November.
I was just going to say, was that Ed Cooley or Shaheen Holloway? I mean, that sounds like everything that Shaheen was saying, and now it's crazy how the trajectories have changed.
yeah, this is not what you expect from Providence at this point in the season.
Yeah,
Not
Matt
really at all.
was pulling something up, so I couldn't comment quite yet. But per Bart Torvik, from February 15th to now, so 3 weeks, take a gander at what Providence's rank would be nationally.
I spent too much time on Bart Torvik recently, so I feel like I already know the answer to this.
Tommy,
Don't ask Matt these questions. This is what Matt does. This is his forte. Their guess for what? Defensive efficiency nationally?
overall efficiency
125.
last 3 weeks, 101. Not good, really bad.
Yeah, and I've been kind of pulling the February 1st on numbers for a little bit, just because I feel like that's kind of a turning point in the season for everybody. That's where you start. That's the home stretch right there. And I think that's crazy. Or you can, if you bump it back to January 29th, which was when Justin Moore came back and Providence and Villanova played in that game. Villanova's the better team by Providence over that time span by quite a bit if you're looking at the advanced metrics. And yet the Friars were 2-0 against Villanova in that span. So it's weird, that's for sure. And yeah, I don't know what to make of this Providence team at this point in the year.
No, they're an enigma right now. I think it was you that tweeted they're sleepwalking into the tournament, and I do have faith, to echo what Chris was saying. Enough with the Providence is dead talks. They may be a bubble team right now, but that doesn't mean they're going to be a bubble team once this tournament is over. It all depends how much stock the committee puts into this tournament, or if they go win the whole thing, which they have the talent and certainly have the coaching to do. So this season isn't over for Providence, but it isn't how you want to go into the big dance.
Plus 1,500 right now to win the Big East tournament. For the amount of talent they have, and at times they've looked like truly a top 2 team in the conference. That's pretty solid value.
Yeah, and we'll talk kind of about paths to the championship a little bit later here, and we look at the bracket. But Providence landed on a side of the bracket where they can go to the championship game, and every team they play is a team they have already beaten at least once this season. They can do it. Whether they will, I think, is very much an open question. But whether they can beat these teams is a known thing. We know that they can. I think the thing that's most shocking here is the way the defense has fallen off. Even though the Friars didn't score a ton of points against Seton Hall, it's only 58 points. It was on 59 possessions, so it was a really slow game. 82 points allowed on 59 possessions. That's Seton Hall's best offensive performance of the season without the team's best offensive player. I think part of this was confidence. I thought they locked in as shooters. But this is back-to-back games now, and really 3 out of the last 4 for the Friars, where the defense has not been there whatsoever.
Yeah, that's what the Pirates do. This is the 10th different opponent that they've held under 60 points this season, which is just an absurd statistic. But yeah, it's what Seton Hall does. They're built around their defense. They're built around getting it out of the mud. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but should they advance to play Xavier in the second round of the Big East tournament, that game is going to be one that I have circled on my calendar. Why did I say that? As if I'm not going to be there. But
we're going to be there for all of this, Tommy.
We're going to be there, yeah. But still circled. Metaphor still there.
Yeah. Chris, any extra thoughts on this one?
Nothing really. The only thing that comes to mind is that if Seton Hall somehow scratches their way to the conference championship game and loses, you could truly make a case that, hey, this team has played a lot better the last 3 weeks. Maybe they're not totally dead in the water yet. But yeah, I'm glad they're starting to be a little bit more competitive.
I think it's good for Shaheen Holloway. Pirate to get to 500 in Big East play in his first year, get a couple quality wins. They beat Providence, they beat UConn. You can rest on those, and no matter what happens over the next couple weeks, I think you can move into the offseason feeling like year one, you got over the first bar, and now you look to add in the transfer portal, look to add in the recruiting cycle, and see what this can look like when Shaheen Holloway really starts to pick the players he wants to succeed.
Yeah.
I think we'll save the Villanova-UConn game here for a second, just because we'll go in chronological order. The Marquette-St. John's game, I think this is only notable because Marquette may be playing St. John's again on Thursday. This is one of the weirdest basketball games I think I've ever seen. St. John's was hitting shots and free throws, stayed in the game for the whole thing, finally Marquette pulls away. You put in the walk-ons, and St. John scores, 10 points in 30 seconds instead of having the ball with 15 seconds left, 10 seconds left, whatever it was, down by 2 points. And then they get fouled and finally miss a free throw. And that's why they end up losing. But panic at the end of that one. And Dylan Adewusu hit a half-court shot, and he hit a 4-point play there at the end of regulation, banking in a three while getting hit, nailing the free throw. I don't know what to make of this, but this isn't the Big East game of the year, but this was a surprising contender for it, a backdoor contender for it on the last day of the regular season, I guess, if St. John's had pulled off the comeback at least.
Yeah, this was a big Wusu game, 25 points from him. I saw that half-court heave. That was absurd, but, I mean, I'm a Villanova fan, so I'm used to it. This happens literally every game at the end of the first half. But, yeah, 16 of 18 from the line. What a wonky finish. I was going through the box score here at the end of the game. I saw Michael Kennedy got in for Marquette. Yep. So I was like, well, what kind of game was this? I saw the final score, and Michael Kennedy played, and those things in a Venn diagram, that doesn't go in the middle very often.
Yeah, it was that full-on panic there for Marquette, trying to get him back out of the game once it became competitive.
Yeah, poor guy.
All right, that was that one. I think the next game chronologically, Xavier Butler. Butler made a push in the second half. Xavier pulled away. I think the only notable thing we got out of this weekend for Xavier wasn't on the court. It was the off-the-court news about Zach Fremantle being officially done for the year. Do we want to just talk about this now, or do we want to save this for when we talk about the actual tournament bracket?
Let's table it here.
Okay. As far as the weekend, though, Xavier continues to impress even without Fremantle. Like they've done what they needed to do to stay on the seed lines that they've been at. So I'm glad that hasn't hindered them, at least to this point, too much.
Offense is still clicking. I'm still very high on the Xavier team.
Yeah, defense arguably might be better.
Yeah, Chris, that Bart Torvik request that you had pulled, if you still have it up, where does Xavier rank in that?
Yes, so since February 15th, the Musketeers, number 7 in the nation.
Wow. Yeah. Super sleeping on Xavier. Number 2 in the Big East, too. Second place finish, first year under Sean Miller. Pretty impressive stuff there when you consider the last month of the season, 5 weeks of the season, regular season, they play without one of their best players. Just surprised Fremantle didn't get any really all-conference nods because he was fantastic all year long. It was the injury that kept him out of that. So you miss a guy like that, you still put together that kind of season. Hats off to Sean Miller for that one.
It was so hard. Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but during our award segment, but we're going to give our picks out for coaches of the year. And I think I'm pretty safe to say that all three of us are going to pick Shaka Smart, but it's insane. Shaka Smart had to go nuclear to beat out Sean Miller for the coach of the year spot in the Big East this year. And he did just that. Sean Miller, hats off. He wants to build this program around defense. But if the offense can stay up to standard, even if there's a little digression from where it is now, it's still a damn good offense.
Yeah, and it does speak to their depth a little bit that Fremantle goes out and just, Jerome Hunter can step in and essentially provide, similar volume and they still have the pieces behind him even that still provide decent bench production. So, yeah, that team is fully loaded even without Zach.
Agreed.
And I think we'll talk about the bracket, but it does kind of set up the two teams that are really good but lack depth now to face one another in the Big East tournament. The other there being Creighton. Potentially a very interesting battle there. Well, let's talk about one of the teams that might be trying to spoil that side of the bracket, and that's Villanova. The late game there against UConn. I thought Villanova was really competitive for long stretches of this game, and it just kind of slipped away. It feels like too little too late for Villanova here because I thought they played well and just kind of ran into the wrong teams at the wrong time down the stretch, Tommy. Is that what you think?
I'm glad that the at-large bubble team situation is over now. It was almost getting to the point where it was a distraction. I think it would have been a long shot anyway, but I mean, these guys, they're only focused on their next game, and that's against the Georgetown Hoyas. which is, by the way, is not going to be an easy game. I mean, Villanova played Georgetown twice this year. They beat them twice, but it was competitive in both the games. Georgetown had a lead in both the games that they played this year, and it wasn't like a 4-2 lead. So Georgetown's a good team. Villanova is going to have their hands full. But yeah, they absolutely, like you said about Providence on their side, Villanova's path to the championship game in the Big East tournament is against two teams that they've beaten. Well, three teams if you count Georgetown that they've beaten so far this year. So kind of you can't get lucky in this year's Big East tournament. I mean, all these teams could. There's 7 teams. There's 7 teams that could win the Big East tournament this year. So there's no getting lucky. But Villanova did end up on, I think, the easier side of the bracket, avoiding UConn and Marquette on Thursday and Friday. They have the talent to do it. It's going to be interesting.
Chris, you still holding on to your Villanova winning the Big East ticket over there? You still feel good about that?
Absolutely. Don't put any stock. I mean, some stock, sure, but UConn's great. And Villanova just didn't shoot the ball well. They shot 36% from the field. Brandon Slater didn't even make a shot in the whole game. I think he's sneaky matters a lot for that team, by the way. But no, Villanova's fine. UConn, I'll go back to Bart Torvik since that's the theme so far. Number 2 in the country since February 15th. They've righted a lot of their wrongs. So, yeah, pair that with Villanova not having a great shooting day, then, yeah, anyone can lose to UConn on any day. So they'll be just fine.
The shot quality, if you guys follow them on Twitter, they had Villanova winning that game 71-70. Villanova took better shots, Chris, like you absolutely said, to echo your point. They just didn't go in. So, right. I mean, that's not the only reason that Villanova lost. Obviously, UConn was the more dominant team from start to finish. But they're going to go back. They're going to look at the tape, and this is a dangerous team come March.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things about that Villanova-UConn matchup is I think we've seen Villanova regularly get like the shot quality victories this year, and then they're not hitting the shots. They're not going in. I think a lot of that is, you lose Colin Gillespie and Justin Moore for most of the season. And it's like, well, those guys who are pretty good at making those shots.
Who said the word Jerome Hunter? He's here.
Jerome Hunter fan club is in the building and in the chat. Thank you for joining us. He's now mad at me, so I'm sure we're gonna have to deal with that later. We are Jerome Hunter fan club. We are giving out our own awards on here in a little bit. If you wanna stick around and see if your boy ends up winning these. Is Jerome Hunter fan club? Is this a fan account, or is this just Jerome Hunter running like his own account? That's my question for you.
Maybe he's a fan of himself. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
He's just his own hype man.
Everyone needs one of those. We're big Jerome Hunter fan club fans here. So love it. Fan club of the year, unofficial. Yes. Mark it down.
Love that. The final regular season game of the year. Chris, I think I'll let you take this one. The Big East regular season started and ended with DePaul losses. This one at the hands of Creighton.
Well, you got to do them like that, man.
I'm sorry, Blue Demons. I know they'd be the first to be just as upset about that. So frustrating end of the season for DePaul, but Creighton this last week, pretty good.
Yeah, with games against Georgetown and DePaul, who knows how much you can take away, but Creighton certainly looked good, and they took care of business, had no problems, made some shots. Baylor looks a lot better now. The defense played well. Yeah, that's really all I got. Creighton looks back to form.
Yeah, I was never worried about Creighton. I didn't watch this game, to be completely honest with you, but I mean, the box score, the recap I'm reading right now, the final score, everything looks up to par with what that game was. So I guess I can just imagine what happened in my mind. And
yeah. This is the kind of game where from afar you can just kind of check the score every 5 to 10 minutes, and if it gets interesting, I'll turn it on. But if everything goes as the plan, I don't think you're not learning a lot about either of these teams unless something really unexpected happens at this point. I think we know what Creighton is and we know what DePaul is, and this played out exactly how it would have happened 90% of the time if you put it into 2K and just simmed it. So
I will say the one snub, for my opinion, we'll get into awards. The one snub, in my opinion, was Trey Alexander.
Right now?
And you want to do this right now? 21. We could. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to that. We'll do the bracket at the end. We'll do awards now. And let's just start with, we got the first team, second team, honorable mentions, all that today. We got the freshman team too. I guess our first question is going to be about who was snubbed. I'll read off the guys that are on it. Your Big East first team: Jordan Hawkins and Adamas Nogo from UConn, Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, Tyler Kolek from Marquette, Bryce Hopkins from Providence, and Sule Boom from Xavier. Tyler Kolek and Bryce Hopkins were the only unanimous members of the first team. And the second team: Oso Ighodaro from Marquette, Cam Jones from Marquette, Joel Soriano from St. John's, Eric Dixon from Villanova, and Colby Jones from Xavier. Your honorable mentions: got two Creighton guys right there, Trey Alexander and Baylor Shireman, plus Devin Carter from Providence and Jack Nungy from Xavier. Chris, I'll let you do your piece here on Trey Alexander.
Thank you. If you look at his numbers in the last, month or so, it's been fantastic. That guy, I mean, he's just so consistently good for Creighton. He does so much. He's probably their best defender outside of Kalkbrenner. And offensively, like, he can catch fire against Georgetown and DePaul combined, and he hit something like 8 threes. So yeah, I wish he would have gotten that second team nod. I think he deserved it. But that was my only gripe for. I thought they did a great job.
Tommy, you're muted over there, big guy.
Happens. Was adjusting my seat there for a sec. My apologies. But I said, damn it, this is why we should corroborate our notes beforehand, because Chris just took everything I was going to say and said it better than I could. I don't mind any of the first or second team selections. I wouldn't have minded if Trey Alexander made it.
Yeah, what I had kind of tweeted earlier, I had no issues with any of the guys on the teams. I'm not sure if it's exactly how I would have put it if I had done it, but I can't be upset with any of it. I think a couple of the sneaky things on here. One, Jordan Hawkins on first team is not something that we would have had a month ago. And I think we're at a point right now where Jordan Hawkins was so good down the stretch. In an alternate world where UConn doesn't have a bad January and the Huskies end up winning the Big East, I think Jordan Hawkins might end up being your Big East Player of the Year. That's how good he was down the stretch here. Jerome Hunter Fan Club asking about Sule Boom not being a unanimous selection. I'm a little surprised about that. I'm a little surprised at a handful of these guys not being unanimous first teamers. I think Sule Boom not being one surprised me. Ryan Kalkbrenner not being one surprised me, especially with Kalkbrenner winning Defensive Player of the Year, that those guys weren't unanimous. And I think there's an alternate world here as well where Xavier wins the Big East and Sule Boom's performance Wednesday night is what gets him Big East Player of the Year. So are you guys surprised that some of those guys weren't unanimous, or how do you feel about the first team in particular?
I'll tell you what, Matt. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You got it, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Major League Baseball, there's been one unanimous selection, I think, in the history of baseball. Doesn't matter to me. Pick the team, or you get the right guys on the team, and I don't care how many votes they have.
That's fair.
Yeah. Again, it feels like a big hallway in here, just echoing everything Chris has said all night. Unanimous is so hard. You have to be so good, so like all year long, so consistent. Sule, would I have been mad if he was a unanimous first team selection? No, I'm not mad that he's not. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He's still on the first team, and the two people that got it were definitely deserving.
And I think it says a lot. Like, that's, look at the guys that were honorable mentions here. You put the four of them on a team with whoever your next guy up is, and that's a group that's, winning a lot of Big East games. If you put them together, this is a really deep year for these guys at the top. That happens when you have, in a lot of ways, 5 Big East teams that played at roughly the same level for all of conference play. You don't do that unless those teams are deep and have more than just 1 or 2 players. Plus, you have the Joel Sorianos and Eric Dixons, who are half tier below that, the teams that they play on, tier below that, wherever you want to put them. And they're strong enough individual performers that you can't leave them off from getting some kind of mention. So then you end up with an Ed Croswell, who doesn't get any kind of a mention on here, or Ryan Nembhard, who doesn't get any kind of a mention on here, or Zach Freemantle, who doesn't get any kind of a mention on here. You could go on. I mean, I think Primo Spears and Emoji Gibson are guys who produced enough that in another year where there isn't as much production at the top, they sneak into at least an honorable mention, if not second team.
Yeah. All I have to say, I was at the I was live in person at the Minnesota Rutgers basketball game on Thursday of last week, and I am just very glad that this is the conference we cover and watch and spend our time talking about. It's the best.
No smoky arenas in the Big East. We have leaky roofs, but no smoky jumbotrons.
Mess.
All right, do we want to go through the rest of our awards here?
Said it.
Yeah, I think some of these are going to be a little bit easier to go through than others. Some of these I don't think there's just going to end up being much discussion because I think we're going to be on the same page. We'll start at the top. Player of the year. It's Tyler Kolek for me. Or either of you go in a different direction?
Nope.
Chris.
I will. I gotta keep up that shtick, right? I was anti-Kolek a few weeks ago. I'm gonna stick with it. I went with Ryan Kalkbrenner because I think, in the spirit of most valuable player, Ryan Kalkbrenner is the best because he's the most valuable to Creighton. He is more valuable to Creighton than I think Kolek is to Marquette.
I think that's very fair. And I think in a world where Creighton beats Marquette in that game a couple of weeks ago at home, if Creighton wins that one, I probably have Kalkbrenner. I think it's a battle of, is this the most valuable player? Is it who's the most important to what happened in the conference that year? I think you can interpret it in different ways. Tommy, what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't have I can't counter that argument at all. I agree with it, to be honest with you. I just think the reason I gave it to Tyler Kolek is when you're giving these awards out, it's always given to the best player on the best team, unless somebody has insano stats, which Kalkbrenner has great stats. Oh, I'm sorry, Kolek has great stats, 10.2, 8.8, and basically 4. My runner-up, I probably I mean, there's so many good players. It's a toss-up of Boom, Hopkins, Kalkbrenner, one of those three. Boom has good stats, 16, 4, and 3. But the fact that Tyler Kolek plays on Marquette, the best player on the best team, it's for the voters. It's hard to vote against that.
And I want to point out here too, and we say voters, the people who vote on these awards are all the coaches in the conference. That's who selects this, which I think gets lost sometimes. Like if you want to disagree with the awards, go ahead and disagree with it. But nobody knows these guys better than the coaches. And you might have differences of preference here, but they usually get this at least close to right. They usually do a pretty good job. Thank you for calling out the train whistle in my background, Jerome Hunter Fan Club. Yes, I do live in New York City near the train, so you get that occasionally.
Thought it was mine at first. I'm glad it wasn't.
Maybe it was. I'm not sure. But yeah, that was somebody's. So Kolek for 2 out of 3 votes. I think Kolek's going to get it on Wednesday too. If we're just predicting here, only 2 unanimous selections to the first team. It's going to be one of those, and it's not going to be Bryce Hopkins unless there's a real shocker here. So I think we can comfortably predict Kolek. I don't even know if you can bet on that. If you can, place your Kolek bets now.
Yeah,
that's just, I don't care what the odds are. That's just an investment.
Yeah,
you'll get something in the bank. Yeah, let's go down to freshman of the year. I think we got a couple different options here. Tommy, I think I already know where you're going. I'll let you start us off.
You do know where I'm going, and it's going to be the lottery pick, Cam Whitmore. 12-5, almost an assist per game he averaged this year. I was surprised going through his stats. He averaged over 1 steal a game, 1.5 steals per game. Karaban, I think, is going to be your runner-up here. He's going to have a lot of time to win a lot of awards at UConn, but I mean, his stats just aren't comparable to Cam Whitmore's 9.7, 4.4, 1.9. Cam Whitmore, I think he's going to walk away with this one.
Chris, do you have Whitmore as well?
Yep, no disagreement from me. His combination of size, strength, quickness, and still shooting like 35% from deep, it's hard to guard. Man, he's going to be a good pro.
I actually did go in a different direction here. I went with Alex Karaban, and there's 2 reasons for this. One, Karaban just played more basketball this year. He had a lot of extra time. He did a lot of really good stuff at the start of the year, and that's not a diss to Cam, but I think he had more production because of that. And I also think Karaban found a new gear here in the final stretch of the season, and he is a huge part of why UConn kind of started to turn things around. I think that's a huge part of it. The way he played, in particular against Bryce Hopkins in that one game a couple of weeks ago at the end of February, was eye-opening to me, especially when you look at how the two matched up the first time they played and the in-season development we've seen from Karaban. I'm not sure how long he's going to have at UConn to pick up awards, but the growth curve we've seen on him this season might be only one more year, if that. So I'm going Karaban. I think you can go either way here and feel pretty good about it. And if I'm drafting somebody, obviously I'm taking Cam Whitmore.
For sure. And I feel like you can make that argument about how much he impacts a team for Cam Whitmore as well. He makes his return against an Oklahoma team after Villanova shits the bed 0-3 in the PK. They come home to face a decent Oklahoma team. Cam Whitmore makes his return, and they win that game. Then they go out to the Prudential Center. They play Boston College, who's not a pushover, but they're not the ACC's finest either. And then they blow them out. So, I mean, this Villanova team was headed for a downward spiral before Cam came back, and he really buoyed them until Justin came back. And although it's a little too late, this season's not nearly as bad as it could have been without them.
Yeah. I think that's valid. I think you can go either way here and feel good about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nothing from me. Matt, Karaban's defense has largely improved, and that really, I was worried about them in March, and now I am not as much because of that one fact.
Yeah, and that's Andre Jackson's going to get a lot of the publicity here for why UConn turned things around, as he should. I think Jordan Hawkins found a new level with his game, and that's part of it. But for maybe a month there, Alex Karaban was kind of figured out defensively at the 4, and UConn had no answer there, and he has figured that out. So big stuff there for UConn. Both of those guys are great. I'm not sure which one is actually going to end up taking home this award on Wednesday. I don't remember what the voting on this looks like. Was either one of them unanimous?
Cam was. I think they both were, actually.
I assume they both were.
I think they both were.
Yes.
I know for a fact Cam was.
They were the only 2 unanimous selections. Yeah, confirmed that. So it'll be one of them. We'll see who it is. Maybe flip a coin on that one.
You have one.
I do have one. I'm saving that for when we look at the bracket here.
I like it.
Yeah. I know we want to get through the bracket, and I realize we're already over half an hour here. So we'll get through some of these on the quicker side. Transfer of the year. Chris?
Bryce Hopkins. As much as I would love to say Shireman, Bryce has been fantastic, and there's a reason he's a first teamer.
Tommy?
I also have Bryce Hopkins, and I could have flipped the coin on this one. I think he barely edged out Boom. He put up great numbers, 16, 8, and 2, better numbers than Kolek in my eyes. But unfortunately, he does play for Providence. He barely edged out Boom. It was a toss-up for me between those two. Shireman was in there, but it was really these two going back and forth. The only reason I lean towards Hopkins is because I picked him in the preseason as player of the year, so I wanted my pick to be right. So I'm going to roll with Hopkins.
I also went Hopkins here. It feels like a shame to kind of shut out Boom from this award with how good he was. And I think he's a huge part of Xavier lost both point guards last year, and they were kind of needing Boom. I think both of these are incredibly important players to their teams. Hopkins, just his rebound production to go with his point production, I'll take him. No wrong answer, but I'll go with Bryce Hopkins for transfer of the year. Coach of the year, I think we can get through this pretty quickly. Shaka Smart.
Yep. I like what he's having.
Yeah, my eyes should be at least in contention for Naismith, if not the winner of it.
Him or Tang, right? That's got to be.
Love Jerome Tang.
Bill Self at Kansas, I think. They had a lot of turnover on that team, and they're going to be.
Don't give any awards to Bill Self ever again. That would be my thought.
I second that. Maybe Jeff Capel.
Kansas. Oh yeah, Capel could be in that. Yeah, for sure. Kansas victimized all 3 of our teams in the tournament last season, so we're all on the same page there.
Wow.
We would have won if Justin Moore was healthy. I will die on that hill.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and then
Providence hit some shots in that game, especially the first half. They would have won that game.
Yeah. The Friars took a lead with about 5 minutes left, and then ran out of gas at that point. Hey, you play the national champion that close. Also, all 3 number 1 seeds had already fallen. Didn't feel like a 4th was going to fall that day.
Yeah.
But it's Shaka for Coach of the Year. 6th man of the year.
Here we go.
Tommy?
Despite the common Tommy L's, despite me being called a bozo on here, despite all the rest of the slander I've received from the Jerome Hunter fan club, David Joplin won it in the conference. I'm going with Jerome Hunter here. 7-4 over an assist a game. Marquette's a lot deeper than X. They have the glue of their team, big glue guy, Stevie Mitchell coming off the bench. I really like Jerome Hunter. Xavier really, relied on him a lot this year. They needed him to improve, and he did. I'm going with Jerome Hunter, 6th man of the year.
Yeah, same with me. I already talked about Jerome Hunter a little bit at the beginning, but he's been so important with Fremantle out. He's been fantastic, and I didn't know if that was cheating or not to pick him, but yeah, Jerome Hunter would be my pick if applicable.
Yeah, and that's why it's tough. That's why I stuck with the one they picked in David Joplin, just because. And yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Jerome Hunter fan club.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the chat's about to be blown up. But yeah, I think the issue for Jerome Hunter here is that I think he played too much to really be the 6th man. He's a starter, and he played like a starter, and he was a really good Big East starter. That's why I don't know if I can call him the 6th man. He's one of the 5. He's going to be part of the 5 that Xavier's going to have to ride if they want to pick up a couple trophies in the next weeks and months. And they're good enough with Jerome Hunter in the starting lineup to do that. He's that good of a player. So if he came off the bench for the full season, Jerome Hunter would be my pick. He didn't. I'm going David Joplin here, who I think also had an excellent season and has kind of flown under the radar with some of the other good performers we've seen out at Marquette.
Yeah, that's fair. For what it's worth, I'll throw it out there since we haven't mentioned his name, and he probably won't get mentioned looking at the rest of the awards. My second pick would have been Donovan Clingan. I think he's really important to what UConn does. Yeah,
that's a great pick. No Sharif Mitchell love?
Saving him for a defensive player of the year. It's not Kalkbrenner. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have, let's just do defensive player of the year next. I think we can play with the order here a little bit. There was a lot of controversy on this one. I had both Providence and UConn fans in my mentions about this because they had guys. Surprising that I didn't have any Seton Hall fans in there too, with Casey and Defo, who I thought had a very good defensive season. So this was a little bit of a controversial pick. Who did you, Tommy? We'll start with you. Who did you have?
Ryan Kalkbrenner. I thought this was a 2-horse race between Ryan Kalkbrenner and Devin Carter. But Ryan Kalkbrenner is the best defender on the best defensive team. 2.2 blocks per game, best in the conference, 18th nationally. It's the best scoring defense in the conference. Kalkbrenner.
Yeah.
Chris?
Schematically, if you look at Creighton's scheme, I think their entire defense is based around Kalkbrenner being awesome. Devin Carter's a great defender, but I do not think that Providence's defensive scheme is based around Devin Carter. So yeah, I picked Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, I'm with you guys here. Although this pick left me wanting, there's other conferences that do an all defense team, and this year left me wanting the Big East to do that because you look at what Kalkbrenner did, you look at what Devin Carter did, you look at what Casey and Defo has done all season for Seton Hall. He's been a huge part, and you could really pick like 2 or 3 different players from Seton Hall with how that defense has been this year. Femi Odekale as well. Andre Jackson, who's been up and down, but when he's been up, he might be the best defensive player in the Big East, period, even including the schematic advantages that Kalkbrenner gives you. And then you got Stevie Mitchell at Marquette, and you got Posh Alexander at St. John's. Posh Alexander and Andre Curbelo, by the way, both tied for steals per game this year. They both had 2 steals per game. So even with the issues Andre Curbelo has had, he's been productive on the defensive end. You got a lot of guys who could deserve to get their name heard. But I think it's a shame we only get one guy who actually gets an award when there's plenty of people who play at that level and deserve some kind of something to come with that.
Completely agree.
Yeah, Posh fatigue, I think, is setting in the Big East. Like he doesn't get the props that he deserves sometimes defensively,
and the lack of team success hurts him there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go to one. Yeah, we got next up here. Comeback player of the year. I know exactly where Tommy's going on this one too. So we'll go to Chris first. Who do you have, Chris?
For comeback player of the year, I went with Justin Moore. And it's just like, it's so hard to come back from that injury in that short of time. And for him to be this good, like playing as well as he has been the last couple of weeks, it's super impressive. And I'm just really proud of all the work he put in to get to this point. Yeah, Justin Moore.
Justin Moore is amazing. He didn't have to come back, but he did. And this is a completely different villain of a team with him on the floor at 65, 70%. He's the vocal leader of this team. He's the physical leader of this team. It's a day and night difference when he's on the floor and when he's not. The mental and physical aspect of this Achilles injury, I've been talking about it all year. It's just that would weigh on anyone heavy. He's a tough soldier. He's torn his ACL before, so he knows how to come back from these catastrophic injuries, and he's had experience. And it's just a masterclass for Justin Moore. Give him all of his flowers. Easy pick for me.
I picked Moore here. There was one other name that I kind of considered, and I think he's out of the running here anyway. But that was actually Zach Fremantle. Depending on how we define comeback, he's a guy who dealt with injuries last season, and he got a new coach and stuff going on there at Xavier. And if we're talking about comeback, just as in bouncing back from previous performances, Zach Fremantle had a career year this year in a situation where I think a lot of people felt like you couldn't necessarily count on him coming into the year being that guy for you. I think he's done some remarkable stuff there for Xavier, but for comeback, I mean, it's got to be Justin Moore coming back from an injury like that and playing as well as he has down the stretch here. It's hard to pick anybody else for that.
Comeback player of the year is so weird. Like in the NFL, Geno Smith got it. Like he just came back from being ass. Like Brandon Graham for his Achilles, he came back. Had a career year, career high sacks. I don't know. Comeback player of the year, wonky, Justin Moore.
Yeah, it's kind of a nebulous definition of how you want to say that one. Kind of a similar vein in some ways, depending on how you define it, is going to be the most improved player of the year. The pick from the Big East was Joel Soriano. Any disagreement, Tommy?
None at all. I mean, he had one double-double last year. Now no one in the country has more than him this year. He's a rebounding champion, first time in St. John's history they've ever had a rebounding champion. I mean, he scored 481 points the last 3 years. He scored 472 this year. They give that man his award.
Yeah, no disagreement from me. 15 and 12. That's fantastic. And the thing, like Matt, I know me and you talked in the preseason about all of the bigs. We on a podcast in the preseason went through all of the good bigs in the league, and Joel Soriano was an afterthought, really. And so for him to be as good as he is, it's really great.
Yeah,
Future Wildcat, Joel Soriano. Would love to poach him. I'm not affiliated with the school. I can tamper.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of teams right now. Hey, I look at Providence right now as a team that has no bigs on the roster next season. I'm sure they'd also love Joel Soriano there. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would. And there's an alternate universe here where St. John's has a good year. Joel Soriano is player of the year straight up with the way he
100%.
played this year.
100%.
So I'm glad he won that award. I think he deserved it. A lot of improvement for him. And I think this is where we start to get in some of our awards. We got some fun ones in here. And I think we're going to start with Game of the Year. I'm curious to see what plays into this for you guys. I want to hear your reasoning. Tommy, we'll start with you over there. What was your Game of the Year?
My Game of the Year had 18 lead changes in it. It's a game where Sule Boom was fantastic all game long. Jared Bynum and Kunkel from Xavier trading threes down the last minute of regulation. That Game of the Year is going to be Providence at Xavier on February 1st.
That was a fantastic one. Those two teams always have something cooking when they play each other. Chris, what'd you pick?
I picked a different Providence game, the double overtime Creighton at Providence game. That game was fantastic, start to finish. It's my favorite game, not only in the conference, but in the entire country. Any basketball game I watched this year, that was the very best one. Entertainment level was an absolute 10.
Yeah, that was actually my pick as well. How many lead changes were there in that one? I don't remember off the top of my head, but
infinity sign. Yeah.
It was almost it almost felt like every basket in that game was meaningless because a 1 point lead or a 2 point lead just didn't matter. It didn't mean anything. It like until you got up to 2, maybe 3 possessions, it didn't matter. And even then, you got was it Ryan Nemhard who took that over at the end to force overtime for Creighton, and yeah, that was a fantastic game. I loved that one. The other one I considered here was Marquette Creighton. I was back and forth between the two of those when you consider the stakes involved in that game.
Oh yeah, Creighton gets off to that first half lead, and home crowd was real hype. I think they had some type of like blew out or something like that. And yeah, Marquette storms back and they shoot like 65% in the second half. It was fantastic.
That was the blew out where Creighton wore white.
Yes.
I don't understand that. All right, I think we'll go with shot of the year then. And that was our next one. And I know where I went with this. I feel like we're all going to be on the same page.
I'm scared now.
Tommy, what'd you have?
No, I want to go last. What's your
Chris?
No way. Matt, go first. I'm scared now too.
All right, Tyler Kolek over Ryan Kalkbrenner to win that game.
Okay.
Basically, the shot that ended up clinching the Big East championship, setting the tone for that, and player of the year over the defensive player of the year to give the lead for good in the final 30 seconds of a game. It's not the highest difficulty shot, but when it comes to importance for the season, I don't think it gets more important than that one.
That's where I went to. I didn't do the shot of the year. I did the shots of the year. He made 2 in under a minute to go. Yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah. Recency bias almost told me to take a Daiwusu's shot from this weekend, but yeah, that's where I went to is Kolek over Kalkbrenner.
I will say, I considered one other one, which was also a Marquette basket, and that was the putback for Omax Prosper in the game against Xavier to give him the win in the closing seconds of that one. Imagine how differently we're talking about this season if Marquette loses at home to a Xavier team without Zach Fremantle, and that's probably what happens if Omax doesn't get that putback. So a season-changing play right there too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think now we're getting into the fashion segment of this. Do we want to start with best dressed coach?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tommy, I feel like you have to answer this one as the Villanova resident.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the right answer. I mean, I got the answer key. I got the script in the mail this week. It's Kyle Neptune, best dressed coach. I mean, what makes him the best dressed coach, right, isn't his tapered suits fit perfectly. It's not the T-shirt, turtleneck, whatever he wears underneath. It's his watches. Look at his watches next time you see him. He's got a black dial Rolex. He's got an AP. He's got a Cartier watch. Keeps him in rotation. Heck of a dresser. Making Jay proud.
We should have named this award, and it should be the Jay Wright Best Dressed Coach Award. That's what this should be.
Yeah.
And following in the footsteps there, Chris, did you also pick the man from Philly?
I went back and forth between him and Mike Anderson, just because Mike Anderson has some pretty sweet like red suits, or he's got the red sweater vest. Big fan of that as well, but I did end up going Neptune.
Yeah. I like Neptune a lot too. That's why I picked. I think just the modernization of that style, the blending of eras that he does, I think is really nice. So huge fan of what Kyle Neptune does over there. Let's go to best dressed on the court. Best favorite uniform matchup of the season. Curious what you guys had for this. Chris, we'll come back to you.
What's the answer you want? Uniform matchup. I went uniform for one team. All right. If that works. I went with Creighton's Baby Blues. They're my favorite uniform in the conference. I think those look pretty sharp.
That's some good ones. I like those. They wore them twice against DePaul this year.
Yeah. Wasted them. Wasted bullets. Yeah. Put them back in the chamber.
Could have worn them for the blue out, but didn't.
They could have wore green and purple jerseys against DePaul. I don't think it really would have mattered too much. I mean, Chris had a little bias in his pick. I'm going to have a little bias in my pick. Villanova has a lot of awesome sets, right? They have the pitch blue, the dark ones. They have the light blue ones. They have the throwbacks. Mine is just Villanova's home whites. What's really like people don't see it unless you're zoomed in on them or you're like on the floor. They have pinstripes in those uniforms. I think the little baby blue pinstripes going down. It's a classic font, classic uniform. It's so clean. I'm going Villanova's home whites.
All right. I embraced the matchup part of this only because there was one on the very last day of the season that caught my eye here. I felt like I just needed to put in that St. John's Marquette game on the last day of the season. You get the bright red from St. John's and the championship blue, they call it, for Marquette going against each other. I like the colors. There's a lot of basketball games where it's white versus black or white versus navy blue. Give me something with a little bit of pop. I like it. It's funny though. I do say that. My answer might change in a couple days here, just based on my tracker and looking at making some predictions here. I think there's a very good chance the Providence UConn game on Thursday afternoon is going to feature Providence's black throwbacks. So Ed Cooley wearing the throwback gear at practice today for the media availability, and UConn wearing the white throwbacks. And I think those are two of the three best uniforms in the whole conference. So if we do end up seeing that matchup, I'm revising my answer to that. Otherwise, give me that St. John's Marquette game. We'll have a little fun with it.
Xavier gold trim jerseys too. Those are nice.
I almost went for the Xavier gold trim ones. They played against UConn in the white throwbacks, and I was like, ooh, that was my second choice.
Yeah, I like that.
I think our last one here is best swag. Tommy, you were the one that put this in, so I'm going to let you go ahead and answer first because I want to make sure I went in the direction you were thinking with this.
I put this in?
I believe so. You texted me a list of the things you wanted in here, and I'm pretty sure this was in it.
Hell yeah. All right. I like where I went with this. I went with Mark Armstrong. And here's how I'm going to break it down. With swag, right? When you break down swag on the very basic level, you got to have the physique to pull off the swag. You can't have Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's like 7'5", 150, wearing like a headband and arm sleeves and all this wacky shit. You got to have the physique to where if I was Mark Armstrong, that's how I would dress on the floor. He wears a shooting sleeve that's clean. He rolls his shorts up a little bit. He keeps the shoes in rotation. His look is clean. He has a physique to pull it off. My runner-up was Baylor Shireman with a headband. My last place was Baylor Shireman without a headband.
He's coming for your guy right there, Chris.
No, I agree. Headbandless Baylor just felt weird, you know. It's like when people, I don't know. I'm not a fan of headbandless Baylor.
Baylor Shireman without a headband looks like when you see somebody without their glasses for the first time.
Right.
It's like something's missing here, and I can't quite figure out what it is.
Yeah, they asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh, I was just trying to show off the new fade I got." I was like, "At what cost, though?" Like,
yeah.
I went a different direction with swag, so I wish we would have clarified. But Providence just got signed with Home Field Apparel, and their Providence merch they have on that website, fantastic. Every Providence fan, go buy some stuff. Go buy some expletives. Yeah, it's great.
If I didn't pack my bag from New York, I literally just packed it today. I have like 3 Home Field Villanova shirts in there. I know that's what Matt's going to go get.
Yeah, Chris, you could not have picked better timing. You just got here about an hour before the show.
Hell
so we'll do a little ad. We're not sponsored by Home Field, but if you'd like to sponsor us, we're more than welcome.
Hashtag not sponsored, but sup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's money.
Those. Yeah, got one of these.
Oh yeah.
The Big East one from '94, and I had to get the sweatshirt. Got the old throwback logo on it. Yeah. Yeah, that I dropped like a whole paycheck on all that. So, but yeah, some great gear. I like that interpretation of it, Chris.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Going that way with it. I went for a player here, and this is kind of I actually kind of had 2 players on the same team, but I settled on one, and it's a combination of their aesthetic and their attitude on the floor. I originally had Andre Curbelo because he's a lot of things, but you can't say he doesn't play with swag, both with the goggles and everything else. But the other guy I ended up going with AJ Storr. He's got that little like undershirt that like pokes out from the jersey a little bit that I think looks really good. He's got the little arm sleeve, and the dude just plays with confidence. He oozes confidence when he is on the floor, and Yeah, he's a fun player to watch. He's got a nice little aesthetic. If we're going least swag too, I'm going with Jack Nungy wearing the mismatched gray undershirt with the gray Xavier jerseys.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah. All right. Do we preview the bracket here now? Is this time? We'll cap with this.
Yeah, quick little 5-minute cap.
Yeah, we'll go quick here, and we're gonna have this here. We're gonna have some stuff tomorrow night as well to preview just the Wednesday games. But we'll do the bracket here, and I think I want to start with my first question, and just in general, which team do you think the way the bracket's set up is most favored here? Which team got the best draws for having a chance to win this whole thing?
I think UConn did. They get the first round bye, and then they get a reeling Providence team. Now, I mean, this is, I guess, a rivalry game depending on who you ask. But, I mean, there's no doubt that Providence is not playing their best basketball of the year right now. Of course, they're going to have to face Marquette in the semis if they get past Providence. But I like UConn's path here.
I went with Creighton. I want to stay away from that top side as much as possible. And I think if you get past Villanova, which obviously is, I'm not sure. Can I put the disclaimer that the easiest path is the winner of Villanova Creighton? I like that's the next matchup, and then you're in the championship. So I like the winner of that game to win it all.
Wow.
See, I might be really overthinking this a ton here, but the team I kind of came around on where I feel like I actually liked their path contextually a lot more than I thought I would at first is Providence, because you look at what's going on the other side of the bracket with Xavier and Creighton are both teams that like you look at Villanova coming out of there. Villanova has beaten both of them recently, and it's a group where I don't know how I feel about any of those teams. I feel like you get a lot of 50-50 draws in there. I think Seton Hall is potentially a bad matchup, and I'm not sure. DePaul is a team that beat Xavier this year and might be in that. And if Providence ends up on that side of the bracket, their path is looking like having faced Seton Hall and Xavier back to back. The last two teams that the Friars lost to, having to play them immediately again. Xavier team that Providence has not beaten yet this season. You go to the other side. Providence has beaten UConn this year. Providence has beaten Marquette this year. Both of those teams more recently than it beat Seton Hall, who would have had to face in the first round, had ended up in that 3 seed. And Butler and St. John's also has possibilities if somebody gets through Marquette there. I also think UConn's, while it's a fantastic team, is a better matchup for the Friars than what Xavier brings, and that's one of the reasons why they split and Xavier swept Providence. So not an easy path for the Friars, but I do think they're on a side with matchups that favor them better than if they were on the other half of this.
Yeah, I think you're overthinking it here, Matt. There's two teams I don't want to see in the tournament, and it's UConn and Marquette.
I think it's also fair, and it's just, and Providence beat both of them this year. I think that's what makes this crazy.
Yeah, I mean, your reasoning makes complete sense, and then I take a step back, and I'm like, what the hell? I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to stay on that other side of the bracket as much as possible, but you're right though. Matchup wise, it probably is better draws, but better teams. So I don't know, tough.
Yeah, it's a weird mix of things there. Would you rather face a team that's worse or face a team that might be a better matchup? And I'm not sure. And the other thing is, if Providence's path on the other side would have been Seton Hall, Xavier in a hypothetical, having just lost to both of them, you might say, hey, they're due for wins in those, and they're not going to put up the same performance they did the last time. So you never know. I think there's a lot of coin flips here. Are there any teams you think that have really unfavorable draws the way this all came down?
I
think Tommy thinks it might be Providence here.
I think it's Providence. The way they're playing right now, having to face the hottest team in the conference and the regular season champs, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, I'll throw UConn there, right? I mean, Providence is not an easy game, and then you I'm sorry, not UConn, Marquette. Providence wouldn't be an easy game, or you face UConn, who might be the best team in the conference right now. Like that's as a 1 seed, that's a pretty tough draw.
And Marquette's draw here is they're going to face a team they literally just played in the first game, and then have to face either a team that looked like the best team in the country for a long stretch of this season, or a Providence team that is, if they get through UConn, going to be playing pretty well, I feel like, and feeling good about themselves coming into that one. For the number 1 seed in the conference to get that draw, relatively, I think, is brutal. And yeah, I think you could also argue Creighton here gets a really bad draw, having to potentially have a rematch with Villanova right off the bat. I think that's tough for Creighton.
Oh yeah, but I will say if you get through that one, I would rather play Xavier for Creighton's style of play than Marquette or UConn.
Do we want to give some predictions here? What's going to happen?
Fire through the bracket.
Yeah, I think we skip the Wednesday and let's each give the 4 teams we have making it to Friday, and then our championship game and our eventual champion. And Tommy, let's start with your Friday there.
I have Marquette facing off against UConn, and I have Xavier facing off against Creighton.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Same for me on Friday, Marquette, UConn, and then I got Xavier, Villanova.
Okay. See, this is where it gets tough, because there's no way this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 on Friday. I just don't believe that that's going to be the case. But figuring out which one of these upsets is actually going to happen, that's easier said than done. Part of me was tempted to pick St. John's over Marquette in some ways based on what we just saw. But I'm going to take Marquette. You guys both took UConn, so I'll take Providence in that one. Because I feel like that somebody's got to take Providence. That matchup is too close to not have somebody take the Friars there. And then on the other side, you know what? Give me Seton Hall Creighton.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Jerome Hunter fan club is going to be rolling over right now.
You're putting your praises.
You're putting me in the tough spot here. You guys are picking the other teams, and I don't know, something crazy is going to happen, and I'm not taking the same as everybody else. And this is where, before we pick our championship game, this is where I want to give my trivia time here. So here's my question for you. Which team had the longest winning streak going into last year's Big East tournament?
Providence.
Georgetown.
Very wrong. The Friars lost their last game of the regular season.
Yeah.
Tommy, do you know who it is? It was not Georgetown, to be clear.
Damn. I really thought Ewing could have, pulled it out of his hat there. It's not going to be Villanova, or else you wouldn't be asking this question. So I'm going to go Butler, just because I know it's a wonky answer.
Yeah. It was Seton Hall.
Yeah.
A 5-game winning streak. I went back last night and I was going through some of the old champions and how they did the weeks going into the Big East tournament. And there's a whole lot of in there, a whole lot of teams that went 2-2 or 3-1 or 1-3 in their last couple games. And some teams that lost games and immediately got a rematch and beat the team that they had just lost to, and all kinds of stuff like that, which tells me I don't want to overreact to what we have just seen. And that's another reason why I'm going Providence winning that game over UConn. I don't think we're going to see the same team we did on Saturday, and I don't want to overreact to what we just saw. We got a massive sample size. We can get any of the Providence teams we saw this year, including the one that played Seton Hall or the one that beat UConn. We'll see. Tommy, who's your championship game and who's winning it?
That's going to segue me into my trivia time for the night, Matt. So I appreciate you there. There has not been a 1 versus 2 seed in the Big East tournament championship game since what year?
2013, 2012?
2017.
Number 2 UConn beat number 1 Pitt in 2004.
Yeah.
So I am not going to have a 1 and 2. I have UConn beating Marquette on Friday, and I have Xavier moving past Creighton. I think, Creighton, not that deep, not that Xavier's much deeper, especially with this Fremantle injury. But I was just listening to Colin Gillespie on the Full 40 podcast. He said his legs were so heavy when they played on Friday night at the Garden. That's going to be a lot for Creighton's starting five. I think Xavier has a flamethrower on offense. I have Xavier UConn in the championship game. It's going to be a really good one. I know we did the Big East Buckets bracket challenge. I have UConn barely edging out Xavier. 83-81 was my prediction.
All right. I like that one. And I feel like that's if the favorites win, I feel like that's how it's going to end up going down.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris?
I went Villanova, getting out of that lower region of the bracket, and taking on UConn. So same thing there. And then I have Villanova winning in a game kind of similar to the Creighton Nova game last year. Give me like a 58-56 weird low scoring game. Go Cats. Go
Hell
Cats.
Yeah. I'm going with in that the early game for mine would be Providence Marquette. If Providence is playing well enough to beat UConn, I think Providence will play well enough to beat Marquette. I think Marquette's played very good basketball, but might also be due to just kind of have a loss at some point here. I think it'll be a close game, but I'm going to take the Friars to win that one. I think it's boom or bust for Providence. You're either going to get a really good team that goes to the championship game, or they're getting bounced by UConn by a sizable margin on Thursday afternoon. The other side, I'm taking Creighton. So we're going to get a Creighton-Providence championship game, a rematch of the first one of the new Big East, a rematch of the game of the year that a couple of us picked, but not the same result. I'm taking Creighton to be the first Big East tournament champion, not from the original Big East there. One of the new teams, the first of Creighton, Butler, and Xavier to win the tournament. That's what I'm picking. I think Creighton's just really good and kind of underrated at this point.
Absolutely underrated right now. Yeah. People's thoughts of them 2 weeks ago or 2.5 weeks ago, I think, are much more indicative of who they are.
Yeah. And I think there's depth issues for Creighton, but we've seen some of the depth play much better at certain points of the year here. They got a great defensive player. So give me the Blue Jays.
Creighton didn't have any depth last year, really, and they still made it to the championship.
It's very true. Now, we're going to wrap up our show here, but I'd be remiss to say before we're finished on the air, stop watching our show right now. Please get to your nearest couch. The Big East Women's Championship is on. Villanova is playing UConn right now. This is going to be a fantastic game. Please go watch that. If you're a real Big East Hoops fan, it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, fully agreed. Go watch the Maddie Seacrest show. She's unbelievable for Villanova this year. So definitely go check that out. I think that's going to do it for us on this one. Any final thoughts before we go, Chris?
No. Shouts to Susan Falvey, my favorite Road to the Garden fan out there.
Yeah.
She is the winner of the Road to the Garden Fan of the Year. Susan Falvey, thank you for your support.
Yes. So, oh man, Jerome Hunter fan club is just catching L's from Tommy.
He's the fan club of the year. He's not a fan. He's a fan club. He's the fan club of the year. We have a fan of the year and a fan club of the year.
Yeah, those are the two right there for sure. You'll be able to catch Chris's writing this week on the Road to the Garden blog. Make sure to check that out. You'll catch Matt. Just talked about myself in the third person there. You'll catch Tommy and I on the blog and on the mic this week, and tomorrow night we preview the Wednesday games, getting a little bit more detail. So stick around for that. We got it coming for you all week long. Lots of content headed your way. That's going to do it for tonight. For Chris and Tommy, I am Matt St. Jean. We'll see you tomorrow night.